As designers, you have to present a lot of your work. It's part of the process to align with the client. And in this book, Donna Spencer gives quite good tips on how to avoid a bad presentation and how to prepare right. And I'm going to mix in some of my experience. I had a boss who was notoriously late for meetings, leaving me in a big boardroom of people that I didn't know. I'm nervous. For one thing, make sure that your tech is working. So don't show up sweaty last minute. Be there 10 minutes early to make sure that you have the right adapters, that the laptop is charged, that your phone is working if you're recording the meeting. Or in the worst case, you can also have a backup printout of your presentation. If something doesn't work with the tech, there's no internet or so, you never know, then it will make you feel calmer and you go into the meeting more prepared. Nothing can go wrong. Because also, like I said, there are sometimes people showing up out of nowhere that all of a sudden these people from finance will come in, totally uninformed of what happened before, what you talked about. So make sure that you fill them into what's happened before so they don't feel lost. So like I said, sometimes you rush into these things and you're trying to get it over as quickly as possible, like I'm doing this video as quickly as I can. And this is not the right way because you're losing people. They're just, if it's too fast, you can't follow it. Also, some people start dancing around, moving a lot because you're nervous, but just be aware that the people that are in the room want you to succeed. So they'll forgive if you say a wrong word or you do a lot of wrong as and pauses or something doesn't work technically. So just calm down. This is totally normal. And don't dance around, stay grounded. They don't always know what they're supposed to look at because they are not trained to be designers like everybody. Don't assume that everybody knows those technical terms. So you have to explain what stage of design they're looking at. So they don't make comments on things that are irrelevant at this stage of the design. If you're just planning a look and feel or a wireframe or just a flow of user experience, you don't need to have comments on how round the buttons are or what font to use, because at that point that's not really relevant. It's a prototype and it's not supposed to work yet, but it's just for the look of it. So they just know what kind of feedback you're looking for. Make it very clear in your instructions what they're supposed to look at in the feedback. And you want to include the audience a lot. It's more about you listening to what they are saying and their reactions than you're presenting. So in between each segment, leave enough room for questions so that people don't write little notes in the meeting and then 10 minutes later they have to present their question, which is completely unrelated to that at that point. Plus the last 10 minutes, they haven't really been paying attention because they're so focused on asking their questions. So to do it right is the audience understands what's happening and what they're looking at. And the stakeholders give the relevant feedback. So a finance guy might look at more of a sales perspective, or a customer service representative looks more of how easy it is for a user to ask the questions here, or a designer looks more at the design, or there's so many roles in every project. Just make sure that you direct the questions directly at what they are the experts in. So stay confident and calm and control. Make sure that you include everybody in the team because it's most important. You're not the only designer on this product. They have to work with it. They have to use it every day. So it's very important that they are included in the process and that they feel included, even though you put this idea into their mouth. But that's a very easy approval process if it looks like it was their idea. So usually there are stakeholders in the team, and everybody sort of has a risk. The biggest boss has the biggest risk. So they just want to make sure that they're covered, and you want to make sure that they feel calm, that they're not in any danger of risking their job. So ask these questions, for example, to the people that are the experts of asking, like, let's say, edge cases for somebody that's in accessibility in the company, or programming questions that are more geared towards the developers. Customer service people probably have to deal with poor design decisions directly because customers don't know how to order things. Ask them directly what their experiences are. That will make them also feel more included in the product. A lot of designers have a big ego, and then they get kind of confrontational if somebody tells them something that they don't believe, and if they spend a lot of time into it, maybe they get a little bit defensive about things that might not work, and they might not work for a reason. So be very open to that, of course. And it's good to present in very small steps because of that reason, so you don't dig yourself into a direction that might not be what they are expecting. So if you show little steps every time, you don't get big dramatic changes all at once. That's referred to as an agile approach of a product, where you make iterations, and every time you present, that iteration is another round, and you fill in the last concepts and so on. You're kind of taking smaller steps up the ladder. Also, you can prepare yourself beforehand and see who's coming to the meeting. If you can ask who's going to be at the meeting. This way you are better prepared. If it's a round of only people that are in finance, you might present it very, very differently than if it's only programmers, or if it's only designers, or if it's only product managers that you're talking to. So you can find out from the LinkedIn, or if they have Twitter feeds, and just find out what they're into, what they know, and where they be prepared on who to expect at the meeting. For me, it's always really important. So I said that before, that you give everybody a role so that you don't get uninformed feedback. You can ask specific questions. For example, for the user research people, you can ask if there's a core user group and how they can describe that, and if this design would work for them. And there you could also ask if the copywriters, if these terminologies are could be understood by their customers, for example. If there's somebody using the accessibility, then you can ask if there are edge cases that you have that could be not use this design. And if there's anything difficult that you haven't really considered before. So if you ask these targeted questions, you get a better feedback from them than if you just ask questions in general, because they might answer design questions, but they are really not designers. So that's an uninformed feedback. It might not be that useful for you. Give a very clear structure so you know at which stage the project is. So everybody feels like they can contribute, and they can also get back to you later on. Make sure that you're always open, give them some kind of contact. So this is also important. Try to avoid jargon, because not everybody in the team might be familiar with some of the design terms that seem clear to you, but if you mention it and they don't understand it, they don't want to ask the question, not to seem stupid or so. So try to be including everybody that you're talking about. These are a lot of design jargons that I found, and just make them bigger here because you probably need to know this just because you're a designer. But a lot of them, like font names or CMYK or the programs that you're using, is really not relevant to the client. So don't even mention your rendering times or something that you're using there. And if you have a device that can record the meeting, that can be very useful just for audio, because while you're presenting, you might not hear certain feedback that might be important, or you might forget about it. As well, if you have somebody that can take notes, that's also very good. But presenting and taking notes is a double tasking, and it will not be good for your presentation, so I wouldn't do that. If there is a lot of feedback, you can do something that's called an affinity diagramming, where you have sort of buckets of questions that you write on Post-its, and people can sort of address each bucket at a time instead of jumping all over the place with every question. yeah, to give the conclusion, give everyone a job so everybody feels included in presentations. Show what's relevant and explain the goal and the stage that you're at this moment. Talk about the user, not about your special features or whatever font or program you use to do this. Talk about how a user is looking at your design at this point, for example. Structure the meeting so that people can ask questions throughout the meeting and don't have to wait until the very end. And respond to all the feedback so that you can gain a trust that you take everybody in the room seriously. Don't brush it off and say like, oh, we talked about this for a long time, or something like, oh, this was already signed off, or so. Like, be very careful not to like be rash to anybody. Everybody wants to help and give feedback. So hopefully that will help to give a great presentation.